All right, listen in. Lean in, if you will, and listen in closely, because if your business growth has stalled, and every other friggin' coach on the internet's been asking that question on a regular basis, if it's stalled though, and you're having a struggle with moving things forward, it's probably not a market problem. It's going to be either a problem with momentum or with mastery. One of those two. And every single day you spend waiting for a clear 5-year market horizon before you rally your team, you're actively choosing to stay unqualified for that next level. So look at the world right now. Let's just point out the obvious. You got gas prices are spiking. You got geopolitical tensions and conflicts going all over the place. This stuff's filling our news feed on a regular basis, and the market volatility, it's hitting every industry. So I don't care what industry you're in right now. We're talking to you. Cultural gravity looks at all of this chaos and instantly whispers to you, hold on now, let's slow down. Let's not lock anything in yet. We got to let the fog clear. Let's see where all this is going. But that whisper, as you and I both know, and there's an unconscious part of you that says this in your head, that's not wisdom. It's just an excuse to stay comfortably stuck in a very passive drift. And real leaders, what we call qualified champions in here, do not need a crystal clear, perfect map to actually move forward. They dominate with a blurry picture because they possess the one element that cultural gravity can't seem to shake off ever in anyone that uses this. It's an unyielding, rock solid anchor goal. Anchor goal. So I'm Spencer Combs, the Defiant coach. I've spent over 20 years coaching entrepreneurs and high performers to break through those ceilings, keeping them from their full potential. And I even wrote the book on it, literally, Momentum and Mastery. This is episode number 122, where we unpack how you lead in the uncertainty. So to kind of piggyback off from the last episode, which was episode 121, you can find it on YouTube. We wrapped up our Drift to Drive series. And what we did was we broke down the power of a true decision in the last episode. That's the fourth factor in going from drift to drive. So we talked about it at the highest level of decision. That's a commitment. And commitment's a big word because it's used multiple times in our framework. So we don't just think about, it's not like we coach people without a framework. We have a framework. This means when you have commitment, you completely eliminate the alternative. You do what the old cliche coaching conversation is, burn the boats. But not only do you turn your back on what you're moving away from, you also choose a specific mountaintop before you even take the first step. So let's get real about what happens on a Tuesday morning, because you might have made a commitment on a Monday. You're all about it, and then you were all pumped. You were ready to go, and then Tuesday shows up. You walk into the office, and then all this massive cloud of market uncertainty rolls in. Hell, you probably don't even have to walk into the office to feel it. You probably feel it the moment you wake up and turn on a TV or look at your phone. And suddenly that path to the mountaintop looks incredibly foggy. It's unclear. And this is where the amateur drifter, they're just going to run back down into the valley. They're not going to go up the mountain. Or they settle for mediocrity and stay halfway in the mountain, which mediocre means middle of the mountain. You're sitting there where the view's okay. I don't really need to go up that mountain. We're good. And they settle. But a driver is going to handle this fog completely different. If you made a true decision last week or when you watched the last episode, then the fog shouldn't change your trajectory. It's just going to change how closely you have to pay attention to your instruments. And this is a key distinction. Many business owners don't even have instruments. They don't have those systems. They don't have anything to know whether they're on track or not. That's really the third building block in the mastery portion. So we're going to hold a mirror up today, because this is going to sting a lot of the leaders who might be watching this today. So many entrepreneurs they're terrified of commitment to a target one that they can't see perfectly. So they refuse to set one definitive primary outcome for their organization. Instead, they try to protect themselves by just, keeping things loose. They give their team like 10 different side quests. This is what I usually call fractional, right? They have a fractured focus. Even worse, and this is definitely a culture killer. They move the goalposts every month just based on the latest news headline or a bad week of revenue, which, by the way, reminds me that in the book Think and Grow Rich, Napoleon Hill actually said that the highest performers, the people that get where they want to go, typically are quick to make a decision and very rarely change them. Where unsuccessful people are constantly or take forever to make a decision, and they're constantly changing along the way, right? Think about it. Do you have any idea what that kind of behavior is actually going to do to your culture? It's debilitating. So when you keep shifting the goalposts, no one in your organization has any clue if they're actually winning or if they're losing. So your people come to work every single day running a race where the finish line keeps driving away from them. That kind of what we call fractionalized, that fractured focus, right? Scattered energy, it's going to kill your momentum. It breeds burnout too. And it turns businesses into a chaotic mess. So stop pretending you're being flexible. You think you're being flexible because you keep changing the target. You're not being flexible. You're being casual. And casual people go broke. That reminds me of Ed Milet's quote, "You're just too casual." So, to fix this, we're going to have to look at the building blocks in momentum and mastery in the framework in this book. There's actually 5 of them, and that's this triangle section right here. We're mainly going to talk about the purpose, priorities, and progress. But all 5 are going to have to be there to get to navigate through uncertainty. So what we've got to do, and this is a principle you might want to write down or think about, you must remain completely rigid on the outcome and infinitely flexible on the approach. Both of them are there. We commit to an outcome. We're flexible on our tactics. This is how we do it. So at the baseline, right here, the baseline to everything is purpose, and the mechanics of purpose is outcomes, right? So these are all the mechanics. These are all the mindsets. It's the mechanics of purpose is committing to a singular specific outcome. So your anchor goal is that outcome. It's the giant neon bullseye that all of your strategies, your resources, your systems, they all revolve around it. And this target is going to be as ironclad as possible. It does not move, no matter how thick the fog gets. So when a plane leaves from JFK and it's going to land at LAX, it's not like it's going to change where LAX is. Now it might adjust which one of the runways it's going to land on, but they know exactly which runway they're going to land on when they get there. It's not going to move, even if there's heavy fog. So right now, or right above that, let's put it this way, right above that is priorities. That's a mindset of focus with the mechanics of a plan, or non-negotiable standards usually is how we talk about it. So your plan is how you execute daily discipline towards that outcome. So many people do this backwards, or they don't do it right. So if you know your outcome, that's going to determine your priorities. If you're not sure about your priorities, it's because you don't have an actual plan, or purpose. I trust that makes sense to you. This might be a good spot for me to point out to everyone. Everyone wants progress. We all want the outcome. We want to make progress. We want to grow. That's success, whatever that means to you. And if you're struggling with making progress, then we have to talk about your performance, which has a mindset and a mechanic right here. And if your performance is off, then it's probably because you lack the power. What you think is power. And funny thing is that it's, when you think power, for us, it's a mindset of accountability and a mechanics of resources or resource management. This is tracking and understanding what you got, and you own your results. That allows you to step fully into your power. Well, if you don't feel like you have that, then we have a discussion around your priorities. What are the non-negotiable standards? And where's our focus? Is our focus on those standards? Or are we more focused on what we're trying to get away from? Which is speaking exactly to this discussion today. Right? If we can't really see, then we focus on the standards. And then if we don't have priorities because maybe we have too many, which by the way, if you have more than one priority, that means you don't have any. You don't have a priority. What are the primary things we're focused on? If you don't have that, it's because you don't have a purpose. And if you don't have a purpose, then you got to get down here to all the things we talked about in the drift to drive. This is very sequential and very structured to help you figure out exactly what you're missing. But when we're talking about priorities, your plan, this is your plan on how to execute daily discipline towards that outcome, or at least the standards, right? And then at the summit, at the very top, we talk about progress. This is going to pair your flexibility and feedback. So this is how you maneuver through the blurry picture. You're going to lock in on an anchor goal at the bottom, and then you're going to establish clear priority standards in the middle, and then continuously listen to the direct market feedback to adjust your tactical steering wheel. Okay? So this works really well when you're like seeing it on paper. So maybe next time I need to do a little flip chart. You don't change the mountaintop. You don't change the mountaintop or the anchor goal just because the road got blocked or got foggy. You find a different way up the mountain. So let me illustrate this. If you think this is a modern coaching rhetoric thing, let's just go back to 1911. My gun nuts are going, 1911? Did he just say 1911? No, I'm talking about the year 1911. Let's look at one of the greatest case studies in human leadership. This was the race to the South Pole. So at that time in modern history, we hadn't been there yet. So there was a race to see which country could get to the South Pole. And you had two expeditions trying to achieve the exact same monumental anchor goal. It was the exact same purpose. So it was literally to reach the bottom, or the literal bottom of the earth, and which one could do it first. So you had Roald Amundsen leading the Norwegians, and then you had Captain Robert Falcon Scott. How would you like to have a middle name Falcon? It'd be kind of cool. Spencer Falcon Combs. Anyway, this guy, Captain Scott, was leading the British. So you got the Norwegians with Amundsen, and you have the British with Captain Scott. Both men were staring into the most brutal, volatile, and completely blurry picture imaginable. It was an uncharted, frozen wasteland where a single blizzard could have wiped them off the map. And maybe you're feeling the same way because you're looking at the market, you're looking at everything around you, and you're thinking, I don't know, I can't see my way out of this, but this is my anchor goal. I know what I want to do. So both men, they shared the same purpose, but where things got different, or the mechanics and the mindset pieces, they diverged, was in the building block of priority. It was the execution of the plan, or what was the priority. Because Amundsen established a clear standard for his plan. It was to march exactly 15 miles every single day, no matter what. Now think about the discipline of that focus. Doesn't sound like a big deal, but on days when the weather was beautiful, where the sun was shining, his men probably wanted to push hard and just like march 30 or even 40 miles. And Amundsen said, no. Our plan, this is our standards, this is what we're doing, demands 15 miles. Then we rest and preserve our resources. On days when the picture became completely pitch black, his men would have wanted to stay in their tents and wait for the fog to clear. Amundsen said, no, we map our coordinates, adjust our execution, and we march our 15 miles. Didn't matter, every day, 15 miles. Some of you are trying to tell your sales team or even yourself, look, this is how many contacts we make per day. It's the same thing. You feel like it? Great. You feel like doing a lot more? Not necessary. You do the exact number, and as long as that plan is going to feed the entire machine, you're just going to keep hitting that standard. So he remained completely rigid on his daily priority standards. And then he was flexible in how they physically navigated the terrain. So his team knew exactly what winning looked like for every 24 hours. There was no question. Now, on the flip side, you got Captain Scott, okay? And on the other hand, he had 0 priority standards in his planning. He led by total reaction. So on a good weather day, he would push his men really, really hard and animals to the point that there was utter exhaustion, marching them for hours on end. And then on bad weather days, he would freeze, paralyze his team, lock them in their tents, and they would just wait. So it was completely dependent on the circumstances. So he kept shifting the daily goalpost based off the external environment. And his team was kept in a perpetual state of anxiety and uncertainty because they never had a consistent standard for progress. They had it was confused, sporadic, emotional exhaustion. It just didn't work. The result? Amundsen's team hit their anchor goal. They planted the Norwegian flag first and then returned home safely without losing one man. On the other hand, Scott's team arrived a full month, not a couple days, not a couple weeks, a full month later, completely demoralized to find that the Norwegian flag was already flying. Broken, exhausted, completely fractured by the chaotic toll of moving goalposts, Scott and his entire crew perished. They literally all died out on the ice on the journey back. I don't know how much of that would have been just psychological, but they didn't get what they wanted. So right now, drop a comment. Tell me, honestly, are you operating like Amundsen or are you operating like Scott? Have you been letting the external fog dictate your daily mood? Or do you have a target fixed in stone with daily priority standards to match? You can put it in the comments right now. Because I read every single one of them, by the way. You don't need a clear sky to move, ladies and gentlemen. You need an ironclad destination and a plan you actually stick to. Let me give you a personal model of how this works. Because a business can only scale to the degree that the leader is personally aligned. In the book, I talk about the 5 levels of life. You've got spiritual, you've got health. So spiritual, health, relationships, work or career or business, and then income. Impact is always going to flow downward. So, spiritual is always going to impact health, right? So when my wife and I plan our future, we don't start at the bottom with a vague income number. We're going to look at the 3 to 5 years and write down a vivid, highly specific, what we call a magic wand story for our life. And we talk about that in here too. So years ago, we locked in an anchor goal to move our family to Florida. Well, at least Amy and I. And that was the purpose. Our anchor goal was to move to Florida. And at that time, the timeline was slightly blurry. And we built the timeline pretty clearly. It didn't take us long to realize we couldn't just move to Florida because of our daughters. They were in high school and they were all kind of sequentially coming in. So we didn't want to move any of them. So we had to wait. The logistics were quite foggy. And we didn't know exactly how every piece of the business was actually going to shift. But the result was a non-negotiable. Because that anchor goal was locked in our minds. It forced our priorities, our health habits, our relationship choices, and our daily work plans to align to make all that a reality. The approach changed a dozen times, saved, based on real-time feedback, but the target never moved an inch. We were moving in 2020. Your business requires that exact same discipline. If you want an income and your revenue metrics at the bottom to skyrocket, you're going to have to establish an explicit, unyielding anchor goal at the top, supported by a clear daily priority of standards. Give your team one powerful outcome to rally around for the next 12 months minimum. Lock it in. You could break it down into quarters too, but you need something that's big, that's on the other, like down the path. Lock it in. Let them know exactly what winning looks like, and then stop moving the damn goalposts. Okay? Here's your homework for the next 24 hours. Pull your leadership team into a room. Clear the whiteboard and answer this one question. If you could only accomplish one primary outcome in the next 12 months, that would make everything else secondary. What's that number? And then quantify it. Put a timeline on it. Make it completely visible to every single person in your building. Once that anchor goal is set, establish the daily priority standards to hit it. And tell your team, the target is fixed. It's fixed. Okay? How we execute is open to real-time feedback, but we are not stopping until we cross this line. You got to stop letting the blurry horizon turn you into an unqualified victim of your circumstances. A true champion defines the environment. They don't let the environment define them. Lock in your target, embrace the fog, and drive. Go to momentumandmastery.com right now and grab the book. It's free plus shipping right now. And take the free 3-minute Defiant assessment at theunshakablesecrets.com. That'll help you find out exactly where cultural gravity is probably trying to stall your business growth anyway. Subscribe to the channel right now, wherever it's at on this little screen. Make sure you become completely unshakable. Share this with a leader who keeps moving the goalposts, and join me next week as we dive into part 2 of all this series. I'm Spencer Combs, the Defiant Coach. Stay defiant, and I'll see you next Wednesday.